Who here has seen the Insidious movies?
Yo!
Yeah, that's not surprising. There are quite a few. We got Insidious, Insidious Chapter 2, Chapter 3, The Last Key, and the latest Insidious, The Red Door, which is what I will be breaking down with no spoilers at first, but then I'll burst into the spoilers like a chest burster out of some poor schmuck's torso. Let's get spooky. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. For those of you who do not remember, the Red Door is a place in the Further where the lipstick-faced demon lies. It might be easier or spookier to call him the red-faced demon, but his official name in the credits in the first movie was Lipstick-Faced Demon. So the movie focuses on Dalton and the lipstick-faced demon. There are some other things going on, but that's basically it. The story takes place right when Dalton goes off to college and him and his dad Josh start having issues with their memories and dreams again. Huh, what a surprise. I guess the memory wipe from the first movie didn't work. But how could this be? Josh's memory was wiped when he was a child, and nothing bad ever happened to him after that, right? Yeah, I never thought of it at the time, but the ending of Insidious 2 was a really dumb idea. Speaking of, this movie takes place 9 years after the second Insidious movie, and unless I am missing something, it has nothing to do with Chapter 3, which was a spin-off prequel of the Lambert family experience, and The Last Key was a prequel, but the less said about that, the better. Story-wise, it's not terrible. It's not better than the first two movies, but it is better than the last two. One of the good parts of the family dynamics is Josh and Dalton's relationship. It's put in the spotlight, but everyone, and I mean everyone else, is shoved to the side. Which is such a shame, because you could do a lot with the other kids, because apparently, the ability to astral project was passed down from Josh to Dalton. Their other son Foster could have had more to do with this story, and hell, you could even throw the youngest daughter into the mix since she is now old enough to be more part of the story. I mean, hell, you could even have her connection to the Further be because in the second movie, the mother of Parker Crane messed with her a lot. You remember that, bitch?
My baby, kill me. Kill me.
Don't you dare!
Jeez. Sorry. Patrick Wilson plays well at being a dad who is struggling at, rekindling a relationship with his son very well. And Dalton, Ty Simpkins, plays an emotionally distant kid, but at the same time giving his dad a shot. He does it pretty well. The bad parts of this movie is that it does nothing for the Insidious universe. I'll tell you now, you will learn nothing new about the Further or the lipstick-faced demon. Nada, zero, nothing, zilch. It really begs the question of why bother making this film? It just brings the universe to a halt because there isn't anything more to do with it, or at least they didn't try to open up a bit more. Another why bother part is the returning cast members. Damn near everyone returns from the first two movies and they do fuck all for the plot. I truly don't know why they bothered to bring everybody back just for them to have 2 lines of dialogue apiece. And that is not much of an exaggeration. Scare-wise, I mean, the Insidious movies have always had jump scares and they did them really well, but they didn't only have jump scares. In this movie, there are really only 2 moments where there was nice build-up which led to good jump scares. The rest, eh. Overall, it's not terrible, but this was such a missed opportunity. The lore in this franchise was so interesting because the afterlife that we saw was so vague and it was kind of like a limbo that we got to see, or it's just hell. Who the fuck knows, because I sure as hell don't, and thanks to this movie, we don't really know much more about it. And I'll just say this plainly, it's not worth your money. There is nothing about this that makes me want to suggest that you run to the theaters and spend your ticket money on it. And the biggest shame is that this is Patrick Wilson's directorial debut. I don't know who to blame more, him or the writers, because this will go down as a horror movie that had a lot of potential, but in the end just felt like a cash grab. Now that all the vague shit is out of the way, let's get into some spoilers.
Showtime!
The movie starts off with the ending of the second movie and the dad and the kids get their memories wiped. I didn't realize this until CZ World brought it up. Shout out to that channel. They good. But this is such a shit idea. It was literally the memory wipe from Josh's childhood that led to his eventual possession that led to the death of Elise. Just goes to show that psychic mediums are fucking quacks. So 9 years later passes and the real movie starts with the funeral of Lorraine Lambert, Josh's mom. After the service, Josh and Renee speak in a way that implies that they are divorced. Nice, we get 2 movies of them coming together as a family and overcoming the ghost of a serial killer and a demon, all to lead to their family breaking up to set the stage in the last Insidious movie with the Lambert family.
Whippy!
By the way, I did read that this is going to be the last Insidious movie, or at least the last one that Blumhouse is going to do for quite a while, so keep that in mind as we wrap this shit up. Josh heads to his car and notices a familiar face in the distance. He runs up to the guy. Oh look, it's the Dice Man from Insidious Chapter 2.
Are you here?
Josh mentions that this man looks familiar. He responds that he knew his mom, but they grew distant. What a shame. Could have been a nice cute couple, but nah, I guess we gotta throw that aside. They talk and the Dice Man says, death floods the mind with memory, but there's time to make more. Nice line. Would have been nicer if he stuck around, but nope, he is gone after that. 2 lines and we never get to see him again. Why? Ugh. So Dalton is heading off to college next week and Josh reluctantly volunteers to drive him, and Dalton reluctantly agrees. They go to college and have a bit of a father and son moment in his new room before his roommate bursts in, but it's a chick. Turns out they accidentally roomed them together because her name is Chris. It's even spelt the same way it's normally spelled for a guy, so you can thank the parents for that one. She awkwardly leaves and tensions immediately rise in the room. Josh says part of the problems that he's having lately were his head and memory being very foggy, but things could be worse for Dalton because Josh never even had a dad growing up. Dalton ain't accepting that shit excuse and they yell at each other and Josh leaves holding back his tears. It's moments like this that remind you that Patrick Wilson is a good actor. Just maybe not the best director. Chris comes back and says that she has to stay the night, but she'll be gone in the morning. She and Dalton go back and forth on sharing weird things about each other, which is Chris's suggestion. At times it feels like they are forcing Chris to be much more quirky than what would feel natural. Anyways, Dalton reveals that he doesn't remember the entire year he was 10. Everyone says that he was in a coma and had some viral meningitis, but no one says anything more than that. Oh, and it's because of this, Dalton is afraid of the dark and sleeps with a little green nightlight. Dalton runs to his art class the next day and the art teacher has them tear up their best pieces as a form of starting new with the class. She has them do a breathing exercise and count backwards from 10 and reach deep within to draw something truly inspiring. Dalton draws a shadowy door, and a demon hand reaches out and cuts him. Dalton wakes up, I guess, and we see the art teacher placing a sharp-looking thing on the holder of his canvas stand. Wait, what the fuck? Did that teacher just slice open a kid's hand while he was painting, or did Dalton just cut himself, or did the demon reach from the further in the middle of the classroom in the middle of the day to cut him? What is happening in this scene? Josh goes to get an MRI to see what's going on with his brain. While in the MRI, he hears a voice saying, "Someone is with you. The door is open." And that leads to probably the best scare in the movie. Dude appears at his head and then completely at his feet crawling towards him.
Oh no!
The doc says he fell asleep briefly during the MRI and then gives him his results. There's nothing wrong with his brain physically, and suggests to either see a shrink or do some memory games to help with his memory loss, and also look to see if there's any family history of mental illness. Back at the college, Dalton looks more at his painting and his blood that hit it. He then decides to smear it all over the painting. I know that wouldn't really work because that amount of blood wouldn't smear that much on the painting when it's already been a few minutes since he bled on it and the blood would be dry, but it does look cool, so I'll give it a pass. But we then get a cheap-ass jump scare from a literal blanket sheet, and I will not give that a pass. Dalton and Chris go to a frat party where a guy is handing out diapers filled with chocolate pudding, which they definitely pass on. Wow, I can't believe they said no to such an offer. They both agree that the party is shit, and Chris suggests that they go upstairs to go through everyone's stuff. Wow, what a bitch. So they go upstairs and Chris finds some weird butthole cream and she goes to smear it on the community toilet. So Dalton is just chilling in a stranger's room and sees a guy puking in a toilet. But oh no, it's a zombie kind of puking guy and he tells Dalton to close the door. He chases Dalton and Dalton goes under the bed. The guy starts to crouch down and Dalton crawls out from under the bed, and of course the ghost appears on top of the bed and vomits directly into Dalton's face. He gets woken up and caught by the frat people, but Chris comes in and gets him out of there and also kicks a rude frat guy in the balls. Okay, I gotta say something. I think this is a retcon. In the first movie, the only reason ghosts were haunting and fucking around with the Lambert house was because of Dalton's coma. He was permanently in the Further and spirits were trying to possess his body, and him being comatose was like the connection. In the second movie, Josh is actually possessed by a ghost from the Further, and the ghost's fucking around with the house was the serial killer's mother that drove him to be who he was, naturally. And also, Josh was trying to get back to his own body. But in this movie, it's not just when either Josh or Dalton are asleep. They get fucked around with ghosts on a regular basis. I guess they are now saying the reason is because the red door is open. Oh, so this is basically just the plot from The Ring 2. The well was partially open the whole time, and that's why Samara was able to escape and fuck with people. Also, this doesn't fucking work in the Insidious movies, because in the first one, Josh saw plenty of evil spirits and ghosts before he went through the red door. The red door is just the entryway to where the demon is, if he is a demon. But we'll get to that later. Later, I think that same evening, Dalton is sitting in his chair working on his painting and I guess falls asleep, because he gets right back up and looks at his body and doesn't even really acknowledge it. Wait, what? So he does remember that he can astral project? Does he do this regularly? He wastes no time and goes upstairs to fuck with Chris a little bit by playing with her weird air piano. He makes it float before bolting back to his room, and I think he gets chased by the demon before waking back up. Chris immediately goes down and accuses him of being a creep.
What? Oh, come on!
You saw your piano float in the dark and your first suggestion is to accuse Dalton of being a creep? Fuck off, you did not know it was him. You couldn't possibly have known it was him. Anyway, he spills the beans to her that he sees ghosts and ghosts appear around him and blah blah blah, who fucking cares. We jump to Josh, who is doing some of like memory matching games, and he is so shit about it that he can't even pick one matching pair. But we get a jump scare. Josh is thrown into the closet and a small box of photos fall into his lap, revealing the woman in black photos and a medical bracelet. Dalton is adding an angry man with a hammer to his painting because of some vague memories coming back to him. He even calls up his brother for help, and we get his only 2 lines in this film. Fucking waste. Chris comes in and explains that Dalton is astral projecting, and that leads him to a YouTube video by the comedic duo Specs and Tucker, who I guess are YouTube personalities, and they give their 2 lines of dialogue, followed up by an old clip of Elise explaining astral projecting, and she gives her 2 lines of dialogue. Fucking waste. Dalton is determined to astral project again and gather data, but that fucking backfires, and while he is gone, Chris almost gets choked to death. Meanwhile, Josh is going through old newspaper clippings at the local library and finds out that his dad jumped off a roof of a mental institution, and before he did that, he left a note for Josh's mom saying that this ends with me. I know what they're going for here, and honestly, why? Why introduce Josh's dad, this new character that we know absolute dick about, instead of working with the 8 characters that we already have to work with? Ugh. Josh goes and visits Renee, and he talks about all of this, saying that he's going crazy and that his ghost dad attacked him, and then the mom spills the beans about what happened in movie 1 and 2. Oh, so I guess she was the only one who didn't have her memory wiped. I could kind of understand why the kids had their memory wiped, because they did see their dad almost kill them, and they would be too young to understand that it wasn't really him, but Josh already had his memory wiped when he was a kid, and look how that turned out years later. Renee does say that Josh was on board with it at the time, but still. Dalton finishes his painting and it's his dad with the hammer. He sends a pic of it to his bro and then he shares it with mom and dad. Dalton goes into the Further and we are back at the end of the second movie. Dalton appears to mess with time a little, but not really, because he ends up tackling his dad before he brings the hammer down on his younger self. But Josh didn't get tackled when that happened. The end of the second movie had the younger version of the serial killer fight off his mom, and and then Elise smashes her face in with a child's rocking horse, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it because of that and Josh being able to make it back to his body in time thanks to Dalton's quick thinking, and that's how he was able to get his body back? So now we're just like semi-retconning shit and adding new things that didn't really line up or need to be added. It's like the writers knew time was different in the Further thanks to the previous movies, but didn't know exactly what to do with it, so now we get this scene. Anyways, Dalton gets trapped in the demon's lair again, and now he is possessed by the demon, and Chris just so happens to be in the room, but nothing happens to her. Really? The moment Josh, or the spirit of Parker Crane, was figured out, he killed Elise, but now a much more evil and insidious creature has possessed a living host and he does fuck all with it? Ugh. Josh goes into the Further from his house several cities away and is able to immediately find Dalton. Wow, in the first and second movie they at least had the characters wander a little, but the movie's almost over so we gotta speed this shit up quick like. Josh frees Dalton and they make a break for it. The demon goes back into the Further to stop them. They get to the red door and close it behind them. Okay, unless I missed something, I'm pretty damn sure we never actually get a scene where we see the red door not fully closed. I guess I am thinking too much about it. They are both keeping the door closed and it's tough, and the demon is even able to punch a hole through it, but Josh tells Dalton to go and he does kind of quickly. Huh. Could have made it look a little harder to abandon your dad, but whatever. Josh says confidently to himself that this ends with me, and they make it seem like Josh's body dies at Renee's house. But then we see this black burning ooze go over the door, and I guess Dalton is pouring tar or something over the painting in his room, and that makes the demon stop. Wow, there is so much to shit on about this. Like, why is this demon giving up so easily? He already punched a hole through the door, just keep tearing it open. There was never any suggestion before that Dalton's painting had any effect or literal connection with the red door in the Further. It was just something he saw in his visions, and he has a history with it. Ugh. But the door gets tarred over and Josh wakes up back in his own body. I don't know why they bothered to do the fake out, but whatever. Anyways, the movie ends with Dalton saying we need to remember the past, even though it's painful. Josh and Renee's relationship improves, and Elise visits Josh midday and tells him to keep a steady stride. And he doesn't really recognize her, so he freaks out when she vanishes, and apparently there is a teaser post-credits scene with the red door, hinting that the gate to the lipstick-faced demon may not be closed. Who cares at this point? Remember when I said this movie adds nothing to the lore? Did my plot summary say otherwise? No. Remember when I said that this movie adds nothing to the history of the lipstick-faced demon? Did my plot summary explain anything more about him? No. What was the point of this movie? Did they really want to throw Patrick Wilson a bone because he really wanted to play director and they gave him the final movie in a franchise 4 movies long and had lost a significant amount of steam? Jason Blum said that they are closing the books on the Insidious franchise for a while, so unless they sell the rights to someone, don't plan on seeing another one of these in theaters anytime soon. It's no fan's place to say what is canon, what is not canon in a franchise, but if you ever want to watch this series again, just go for the first 2 and call it good after that. The Insidious series had a strong start, but now it's just limping with stubbed, bloody feet trying to cross the finish line. All the fans are saying, this is painful to watch. There is not much else to say. I wish my latest video coming back from my short hiatus was going to be a goodie, but sadly, not the case. Let's hope for next week I can find something worthy to recommend, and stay spooky.